Inference Plus Story Short number 34, Series A. There was no reason why Mary and Jamie were childless. Both were young and healthy, with all the necessary parts seemingly in proper working order. But 6 years had passed since the wedding, and they still had no children. Mary's longing for a baby had grown so intense that the sight of a pregnant woman passing by in the square sent squalls of desperate tears down her cheeks. Jamie tried to distract her with jokes and treats, but a piece of toffee, however delicious and buttery, was a poor replacement for a cooing infant. Jamie was quickly reaching his wits' end. The situation was unsustainable, and something had to be done. Jamie was loath to do it, but it was the only option. He took a deep breath, stuffed a freshly killed chicken into his knapsack, then went into the hills to see Nona Yaya. Nona Yaya possessed a very special, very particular set of skills. Jamie raised his hand and rapped tentatively on the door of her cottage. A voice screeched from behind the door, "Put that hand down or I'll put it down for ya!" Jamie tucked the offending hand into his jacket pocket, just in case. The door opened and Nona Yaya's sharp dark eyes peered up at him. She was not a woman who stood on social niceties. "I'll assume you're not here to invite me for tea, so come sit down and state your business." Jamie sat in the indicated chair. It was hand-carved from what appeared to be a tree stump. A nubbin of branch poked at him intimately from below. He shifted uncomfortably. "It's for my wife that I've come. Mary wants to have a baby." He dug in his knapsack and held out the chicken. Nona Yaya sighed. "For that I expect the chicken to be plucked and dressed." She thrust a basket at his feet and tossed the bird inside. "Best get on with it." Seeing no other alternative, Jamie plucked, then gutted, then dressed the chicken. When he was finished, he returned to the door and knocked, then instinctively pushed his hand into his pocket. Nona Yaya opened the door and regarded the chicken. "Pretty good," she said, lifting the carcass by its legs and examining it. "So, this wife of yours wants a baby? I assume you've tried the usual way." Jamie nodded, face turning the shiny red of a fall apple. "That answers my questions," she said. "You'd be surprised how many people overlook it, though. Best to ask. Start down the easy path and all that." "There's no reason," Jamie shrugged helplessly, "but it's been 6 years and it's tearing my Mary to pieces." A tear welled in the corner of his eye, and he used the cuff of his jacket to brush it away. Nona Yaya harumphed, but there was a glimmer of sympathetic resignation shining in her sharp eyes. "I suppose it's a baby for you, then." Jamie beamed. "Just tell me what I need to do. Whatever it is, I'll do it." Nona Yaya waved her hand dismissively, then pulled a large leather-bound book from her shelf, brushed the dust from the cover, consulted it, and carefully wrote out a list. She handed it to Jamie. "Come back in 3 days when the moon is full. No substitutions." He decided not to share what he'd done with Mary until just before it was all about to occur. His hands would be full enough acquiring the items on Nona Yaya's list without the need to reassure his anxious wife every minute of the next 3 days. Many of the items were simple enough to procure: a cup of salt, strands of Mary's hair, a lump of his own earwax harvested at dawn. But others were proving more of a challenge. A particular problem was the procurement of the lamb. There wasn't one to be found anywhere in the county. Luckily, Old Man McCorticle's goat had recently birthed a healthy kid, and in Jamie's mind there wasn't such a vast divide between a sheep and a goat. It would surely do. When the night came to return to Nona Yaya's, he told Mary about his plan. Jamie had anticipated tears of hopeful gratitude, so he was caught off guard when Mary responded with a mixture of amusement and irritation. "I don't see how hauling a lamb and some of your earwax out to Nona Yaya's is going to produce a baby," Mary said skeptically. "But who knows, maybe it'll work. Nona Yaya was able to shrink Mrs. Gruber's goiter, and that was nothing short of a miracle." Together, they loaded the strange assortment of items into the wooden handcart they used for gardening. The goat, a small frisky thing Old Man McCorticle had affectionately called Jerry after his brother who died when a pony kicked him in the head when they were boys, was placed in the cart last. Nona Yaya opened the door before Jamie could even knock. The goat bleated, drawing Nona Yaya's attention to the contents of the cart. She looked from the goat to Jamie, then Jamie to the goat. I said no substitutions, she snipped. It's not lambing season. Not much to do for that, I suppose, she said. You'll just have to make do and hope for the best. Nona Yaya continued to root through the contents of the cart. Wrong mushrooms, too, and this can't be more than half an ounce of gold, and that's being generous. I know what you said, but... he began. I know, Nona Yaya rolled her eyes. You did the best you could with what you could find. You're not the first. How exactly does this whole thing work? Mary asked. Nona Yaya straightened her spine, insofar as it was able, and took a proud and noble persona. I have knowledge, passed down from me mother, who learned from her mother, as far back as time itself. I am she who carries the old ways, using the power of the Lord and the earth, to help and to heal. Together we shall climb the tallest mountain in the land. There ye will build a fire, and I say the sacred words. Ye shall make your offerings, and Lord willing, in return you shall receive a babe. The plan seemed straightforward and simple enough. The trio began the arduous journey to the mountain. The only sounds were the increasingly insistent squeal of the ungreased cart axle and the increasingly labored breathing produced by Nona Yaya. Maybe we should rest for a bit, Mary offered helpfully. If the old woman's heart gave out before they reached the peak, they'd have lost a chicken for nothing. I'm fine. Just need to catch me breath. Nona Yaya, why don't we put you in the cart, Jamie offered. You can save your strength for the ritual. Despite her tiny frame, the weight of Nona Yaya still far exceeded that of a newborn goat, and the axle splintered. So much for the cart. There was a moment of total inertia as all three froze in place. Jerry devoured the mushrooms. Mary screamed in disappointment and rage. No chicken, no baby, and now no cart. Nona Yaya's face had taken on a look of pondering reflection. Looking around her in the soft moonlight, Nona Yaya spied a small hillock with a gentle incline not half a kilometer away. The sacred place. It would do. I know a place even more sacred than Codswallop Peak. I can take you there, and there we will perform the sacred rites. Follow me to your destiny. They lumbered to the top. Go ahead and get the fire going, she advised. I'll lie down a bit and prepare myself for the ritual. These preparations looked more like lying on the ground in exhaustion, but what did they know about the intricacies of magic? It took a while to stoke up a respectable blaze, and by the time the task was accomplished, Nona Yaya was snoring loudly. She gently prodded Nona Yaya's shoulder, startling her awake. Nona Yaya, should we begin? It was then that Nona Yaya realized she'd forgotten her spell book. The concern on her face must have been apparent because Jamie asked, Is everything all right, Nona Yaya? She thought miserably about the long hike back to the cottage and about her aching knees. Not a thing, lad, not a thing. Join hands with me to form a circle. Keep an eye on your goat. Hands were joined. A circle was formed, and Jerry placed in its center. Nona Yaya adopted her formal persona and spoke the sacred rhyme. Spirits of the forest dark, we come to you with needful hearts. Offerings we bring. In exchange, we ask one thing. She paused, then continued with perceptibly decreased confidence. We come together in this place to call upon your boundless grace. Jamie, fetch the hair and the earwax. Use the earwax to fix the hair to the goat's forehead. Don't dawdle, be quick about it. He complied. Jerry, thinking the affixing of the hair/wax was a caress, sighed contentedly and nuzzled his hand. Jamie once again sent up a silent prayer that the poor thing wasn't headed into the fire. A child is what our hearts desire. Accept these tokens bathed in fire. The fire flared dramatically, causing Mary to shriek in terror. This is usually when you put the mushrooms in the fire, but I suppose that wasn't meant to be. No matter, fetch the salt and pour it over the goat. Like seasoning, Jamie thought nauseously. Regardless, he did as he was told. Now the thread, bind up your hands to one of the wee beastie's hooves. Jamie bound hand to hoof with the thread, then looked expectantly to Nona Yaya for further instructions. She continued, voice confident once again. With this thread, our hands we bind, and ask for you to change this goat, into a babe, its nature rearranged. The flames of the bonfire shot skyward, then extinguished, leaving behind a choking cloud of smoke so thick it briefly blotted out the moon. Overcome with anticipation, both Jamie and Mary looked hopefully at their joined hands and found that the goat had not been changed into a baby, but in fact remained a goat. It wiggled its hoof free and bleated. Mary burst into hysterical tears. "There were a lot of substitutions," Nona Yaya said. Mary only wailed more ferociously. Snot had begun to drip from her nose and pool on the bodice of her dress. Just when Jamie feared that all was lost, a tiny voice broke through the darkness. "Mama! Mama!" The words came from Jerry. Every external feature remained unchanged, but a new and curious light had appeared in the animal's eyes, which now fixed adoringly on Mary. "This is obscene," Jamie whispered, crossing himself and mentally begging the Lord to forgive him this folly. "Don't be so hasty," Nona Yaya said with a nonchalance only achieved through 8 decades of intermittent magical blunders. "This situation, well, not what she hoped, may prove to have its own advantages." "What advantages?" Mary screamed. "Well, for starters, his constitution." Jamie couldn't disagree with that. Goats were plenty hardy. Mary had begun to calm and grudgingly held out her arms to the animal, who trotted happily into them. She had to admit he was a sweet little thing.